Hello, I'm Heather Hilda Darling, and you're listening to Let's Talk Property on Radio Reverb 97.2 FM and DAB. The programme is sponsored by Callaway's Estate and Letting Agents. I've got a real treat today. Let's Talk Property becomes Let's Talk Beach Huts. I'm speaking to Chris, who's a first-time beach hutter and loving being a beach hut owner by the sound of it. And then my guest is Veronica Henry, author of several, she's written a quadrant of books about beach huts. So let's get the party started. And first up is Chris. Chris, I'm really pleased to have you here in our virtual beach hut today. I think there couldn't be a better place, do you?
Oh, no, well, it would be nice to be down the beachfront today. It would be nice to be in the hut with the shade up, just enjoying it. But no, it's nice to be in the cool as well.
Absolutely. Have you always been a fan of the great outdoors, or was this something that just took you by chance? Let's buy a beach hut.
No, we've always looked at it. Me and my partner Amy have wanted one for years. We've lived in Hove for 14 years. And we used to walk up and down the promenade and kind of speak to people. And we always used to go and speak to the people sitting outside the beach huts. And we just used to always look in, and sitting on the other side of the fence now, everyone seems to look into our beach hut, and you can tell that they're having the same conversations we used to have. We just constantly used to say, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, you'd always use it. And what a better place to have it just down the road from our house. So, yeah, it's always been a bit of a dream of ours.
So has anything come unexpectedly with the beach hut that you actually hadn't considered before you bought it?
Not really. I think we always knew that we'd make use of it. We never used to go down the beach a huge amount, especially in the summer, because it would get too hot and you've got to take everything down there. So I think just having that ability to just head off down the beach for 3, 4, 5 hours is just a real luxury, especially I think 18 months we spent in our houses working from home. So to actually be able to escape for 3, 4 hours a day has been a real godsend. And we've only had the beach up for a month, and we've already spent 20 times what we would normally do down the beach in a summer. So we're having a great time.
So you're thinking of downsizing at home now? You don't need that anymore?
I think if we could sleep in them, then I'd be building a mezzanine level and living in it. But no, we absolutely love it. And it's almost like a second home, which is great and what it's all meant for.
Have you got more friends now you've got a beach hut?
We have actually got more friends, and funnily enough, our neighbours have just bought one 26 away, as you know. So the amount of people now that ask, how do you buy a beach hut? Because I don't think a lot of people actually knew you could just contact you guys and get on the email list. So the amount of people that ask about it now has kind of shot through the roof.
Fantastic. Now, why did you choose that area of the seafront? Was there a particular sort of pull there?
There was I think we've always liked it up that way. And I think with Rockwater's obviously been built, and that's changed. I think the way the area is, there's obviously places to go and eat in that area where there wasn't as much before. Lexus Cafe, you've got Big Beach as well. So there was everything we wanted. There was a sea wall as well in front, which protects the beach hut, which was quite nice. And it's also a really wide part of the promenade. So no one kind of gets too close. You've got your own space out the front. So yeah, the more time we spent going up there, we just said this is where we have to be.
A little birdie told me you're quite fond of the water.
I do, yeah. Again, the amount of time I've spent paddleboarding in the last 4 or 5 weeks, as the last 5 years, I never got out anywhere near as much. It just makes it really easy. You put your paddleboard in the beach hut, you can leave it there. You don't have to worry about transporting stuff down. So. I've spent a lot of time out the last few weeks, and it's been great fun.
So is Amy becoming a beach hut widow?
No, she's part of the beach hut. We live in it together, actually. So no, we've spent so much time down there. It was her birthday last weekend. We were down there probably about 10 hours a day, and just had a great time. So we've got the barbecue, we've got the gas cooker, we've got the shade. It's just absolute perfection.
Fantastic. So last question before I have to let you go. Eat in the beach hut or eat out of the beach hut?
Eat out the beach hut, especially when the weather's like this. Just sit out the front with a barbecue. We'll get the pizza delivered. We had pizza on Saturday, fish and chips on Sunday, sitting out the front. So, if anyone's ever thinking of getting one, it's an absolute dream.
Do you think you will use it as much in the winter time, though?
We've talked about that, and we found Christmas and New Year's last year, everyone was in their beach huts drinking champagne, even though it's cold. I think we'll be amazed how much we use it in the winter. I think it's going to be really good fun, and we can't wait to get out there when it's cold as well. So it'll be great.
Fantastic. I look forward to my invite. Lovely. Thank you so much for talking to me, Chris. It's been great. Okay,
No
have a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye.
Cheers.
I'm imagining I'm actually sitting on the seafront in Hove at the moment, and my guest is sitting alongside me. We're looking out towards the channel, and people are wandering by. We're getting a little bit hot and bothered, so we might just retract into the beach hut just to get a little bit of shade. But anyway, here we go. I want you first and foremost to name as many beaches with beach huts in the UK as you can in 20 seconds. So just think about that. You've got 20 seconds to think about the places, maybe along the south coast of England, maybe further afield. I can think of a few beaches in Norfolk and Suffolk and Cornwall and Scarborough where there are beach huts. How many more can you add to the list? Now, I've got another question. Are you a natural born beach hutter? You may have already visited lots of beach huts as a child or as an adult with young children. But have you ever hankered after a glorified shed? Are they worth their weight in gold? When I wanted to find the answer to the question, how many beach hut owners in the UK are there? Of course I turned to Google. And do you know there are about 20,000 beach huts in the UK? Amazingly, these will obviously have families of maybe 2 or more people as well. So just think how many beach hutters there actually are. And some of the locations which you may have thought about, Lowestoft, Southwold, Walton-on-the-Naze, Frinton-on-Sea, Abersock, Rotherslade, Isle of Wight. But what about Hove? What about Lancing? What about Worthing? They're all within our reach. We Brits supposedly saved between 143 and 192 billion pounds during lockdown. But could you be persuaded to part with your cash for a little bit of 6x6 timber property on Hove's prom? Properties in Sandbanks, on the contrary, have reached eye-watering selling prices of over £300,000. With an average in Brighton and Hove of approximately 25,000, that makes the pound per square foot rate of £694. Those are eye-watering figures. So let's find out. As we head into the summer months, could you be persuaded to part with your cash for a property? My guest today is author Veronica Henry. Veronica, welcome to my little beach hut on Hove Prom. Are you sitting comfortably?
I am, and it's very warm, but it's very beautiful, and there's a lovely view. So,
there's lots of people as well, aren't there?
Yeah. Enjoy the sun.
Now, you've written a quartet. Is that the correct term? A quartet of beach hut books?
Yes, I don't know what comes after a trilogy. Yes, well, let's call it a quartet.
A quartet. Yes. So, but why beach huts?
Well, I always like to set my books somewhere where I feel my reader would like to be. And I actually live in Woolacombe in North Devon. And every summer I rented a beach hut on Woolacombe Beach. I've got 3 boys. And I was sitting there one summer, kind of doing some research for my next book, thinking about what I might like to write about. And I realised that the setting was fascinating. I was basically eavesdropping on everybody, all the surrounding beach huts. And I just had one of those light bulb moments. And I emailed my publisher and said, what about a kind of Coronation Street meets the Bowden catalogue novel set in a row of beach huts in North Devon? And she just went, right, do it now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And how well did the boys enjoy their years in the beach hut?
Oh, well, I mean, I rented it rather than owned it.
Okay.
Our beach huts here, they come down every winter because they're only small and they're quite sort of, I don't think they'd survive the crashing waves of the coast here. But they loved it. My boys are quite spread apart in age. There's about 5, there's 3 of them and they're 5 years apart each. So it was great because when they were teens, you know, they could just go off and do their thing and surf. And then the toddler, you know, when the littlest was small, it meant I could keep an eye on him and do sandcastles. And but they also had somewhere to come back to. You know, I could let them off the lead, but they could always come back for an egg sandwich or a drink, and it was somewhere to store all the stuff, you know, because it's exhausting carrying all that clobber, isn't it? So it's just great to have somewhere to camp out, really.
Do you think one of the advantages of beach huts is you can't really use the internet there, can you? Okay, you can use phones. Do you think that's one of the positives about being in a beach hut, where all that technology just generally disappears? Or do you think that nowadays people will... I even get people saying, can we have a solar panel on our beach hut roof so that we can use technology? That seems to be sort of counteractive, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great things about a holiday is you're supposed to disconnect. But, I mean, I know now that people are actually ordering Deliveroo from their beach huts, which is insane. So they probably, you know, with the signals now, I think you probably can, you know, get the internet all the time. But for me, well, it's the sand. I don't want to get sand in my iPad. So, yeah, I think it's really, really nice to be able to switch off completely and just, you know, take a proper book to the seaside and sit there with it in a deck chair.
So when you said that the beach hut that you rented were wheeled away in the winter, I mean, that's not the case down in Hove. The beach huts are there all year round. Do you think, in a sense, that's a shame? Because I love the wild and windy sea and I love the wild weather. And once you tuck yourself at the back of the beach hut, you could be anywhere. And, of course, there's fewer people around. Would you have preferred to be able to use it all year round?
Oh, yes. I mean... one of my books is actually so my beach huts in my books are completely fictional and rather fantastic because they all have lovely kitchens and enough room to sleep in, so they're sort of rather super. I think there are beach huts like that, but they're rarer. I think you'll know better than me. So yeah, I love that windswept. The beach and the beach in the winter is just so dramatic and romantic, and it's just nice to snuggle up and, you know, have that thermos of tomato soup or cocoa with a bit of something in it, perhaps. So yeah, no, year round is great, but as I said, the little ones here just wouldn't cope with the bashing of actually they floated away last summer in the heavy spring tide that, well, I can't remember what time of year it is. It's called spring tide, but it's not during the spring, but it comes very, very high up the beach, and they literally were bobbing about in the waves and had to be captured.
Oh, so you've done four books now. How do your ideas come to you? Just sitting there one day and you think these ideas just float into your mind, and then you know, I'm not a writer. It's very difficult for me to think, well, I've got to sit down and write 2,000 words a day or however many it is. How do the ideas, and what's your sort of daily routine for getting the words on a page?
Well, it's a combination of having that light bulb moment, as I just described to you, but then also sitting down. You know, it's all very well having an idea, but then you've got to make that idea last for, you know, 90,000 words, a good 300 pages. So an idea is not enough. And that's when the hard work comes in, when you have to actually start plotting and thinking of what the theme of the book is. So the first beach hut book was the grandmother having to sell the family business at the family beach hut, and how devastated the whole family around her is because they've been going there for years, and the kind of knock-on effect of that. And I explored all the different members of the family and what that beach hut meant to them. So there's a lot of hard technical work, craft that goes into it, combined with that kind of inspiration that you sort of don't know quite where it comes from, or you'll see somebody or you'll earwig on a conversation, as I was saying earlier, and you think, oh, that's great. And also I think holidays are very dramatic in themselves, because, you know, we all have this idyllic notion of switching off and everybody frolicking off and having a wonderful time, but actually you take your troubles with you, don't you? And that's it's almost more, everything comes out on holiday because the pressure's on to have a good time. And, you know, maybe the husband's not switching off and is always on the phone to work, or the wife indeed. And the children are like, we didn't want to come here. We wanted to go to, you know, we want to be back at home on our Game Boys. So, you know, there are all these stresses and tensions. So it's quite ripe for drama.
I love the way you explained about the emotions in your first story, because, of course, this is something that I come up against quite a lot, where people perhaps bought a beach hut years ago. They've been there with their children. They've wintered and summered the beach huts, and suddenly the children just aren't interested anymore. And it's a real wrench very often for the parents, because not only are they selling their beach hut, which they've had for years, it's almost like the family is no longer as it was, because the kids have grown up and gone away, and therefore there's that emotional break. And so many of them have said, oh, I just feel so emotional. I really don't, I want to keep my beach hut, but we don't use it. And of course, there are costs involved.
Yes.
Are you surprised about that? I mean, obviously you write about this and you must have picked it up somewhere, but the emotional side of selling a beach hut is incredible. Some grandparents come back to me and say, had such a lovely time when the kids, when they were little. I want to get a beach hut now for my grandchildren, so that the kids can have a really good summer on the beach and rock pools and everything. So how difficult is it to write about other people's emotional ties with a beach hut?
Well, I think there's all sorts of things tied up in, isn't it? It's memories and nostalgia and escapism, and I think we're very selective in our memories, so we do look back and just remember all the wonderful times on holiday, as opposed to the stresses that I was just referring to. And quite often, on a certainly an English holiday like that, it is the grandparents' annual chance to connect with their grandchildren, and then there's the sort of holiday romances and the chance for families to come together. So I think there's a massive emotional investment in something. I mean, it's always difficult selling a house. I think selling your home is a huge wrench often, but I think with a beach hut, because it's so intense, you have those few weeks of sun-drenched happiness. So to sell it is just, I know my grandparents had not a beach hut but a sort of shack in Southern Ireland. And when they sold that, it was just unbearable. And it had on the wooden wall, all our heights. When you draw on a pencil.
Oh, yes.
Heights up the wall, and it's kind of like giving away part of your soul, if that's not too melodramatic. So I think it means something to everybody else, and you've got the sort of pile of paperbacks that everybody plunders every year, and the jigsaw puzzles, and the thermos flask, and all those smells. They smell, like slightly damp, slightly salty. There's a very special sort of evocative, seaside-y holiday smell as well. And I think that really gets under your skin.
It does. And of course, what I love is every single beach hut, although they're all very similar size, 6x6, they're all designed so incredibly differently. I mean, it's amazing what you can do inside a 6x6 shed, different shelving, different little cupboards, different storage solutions. I just think it's amazing, just the colours. I mean, again, the colours, just what colour are you going to paint your door? And people, some like the sky blues and the pinks, then you get the oranges and the reds. And it's amazing because on Hove Seafront, we get an awful lot of visitors down from London and overseas students. And there's not one day goes by where you don't see somebody leaning up against a beach hut door being photographed by somebody, because, of course, they are the Hove icons, absolutely.
Very Instagrammable.
Very Instagrammable, absolutely.
Listen. 97.2 FM. Radio Reverb.
These bigger beach huts, do you think they have a different meaning if you can stay in there? I mean, when I was a child, my grandmother lived in Ramsgate, and every time we went down to visit her, she used to hire a beach hut for the week, which we really enjoyed because, we lived up in Kilmarnock in Ayrshire. We weren't that close to the coast, but going to Ramsgate and walking down the ramp and going to the beach hut and, as you said, having our egg sandwiches. It was always egg sandwiches and tomato soup, wasn't it?
It's the law.
It was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And of course, when the children were young and my in-laws had a beach hut along at Rottingdean, the children used to spend hours down there. And of course, it's those little things that you do on the beach, like in the rock pools where you're looking for crabs and shrimps and looking at all the different seaweeds. And I think it's just the whole experience of going to the beach, isn't it? And then sitting there, as you said, and talking to the passers-by, and it's just passing the time of day in such a glorious way.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of rituals, isn't it? And that ability to switch off and become totally absorbed in something that's, looking for a crab in a rock pool. You could spend hours poking around with a fishing net and just sort of pootling, I suppose, is
pootling. Yes, that's a good word.
And then you have got your ritual of, it must be about time for a 99 ice cream or fish and chips. So there's a whole sort of layer of lovely experiences, and then the sort of sandcastle, which can get a bit competitive. And you put those little paper flags that you can buy in the shop, and then you have to write your postcards to send home, and it's just it's sort of like another time. And I think those things are still very much with us now. They haven't been stamped out. People still love all of that. And certainly where I live, if I say, I live in Woolwickham, so many people just go a bit sort of misty-eyed and go, oh my God, we used to go there as a child. And I can remember camping with my granny. And it's just all of that sort of simple pleasures, almost sort of Enid Blyton, famous five, nothing to worry about. Doesn't matter what time you get home or if you get your clothes dirty or what you're wearing, nobody cares. Let's have more of that. What's not to like?
That's right. Now, you said to me that you were a journalist at one point. How did the journalism turn into becoming a book writer?
I was actually a script writer rather than I have done some journalism. So I was a script writer. So I started off my career, whatever you want to call it, as a script typist for the Archers on Radio 4 when I was,
my husband loves the Archers. He always disappears out, at that time of the day, and I know where he's gone to listen to the next episode of the Archers.
So that kind of drew me into the world of storytelling, if you like, and made me realise how important it is for people to have an escape and sort of get drawn into another world, for even if it's only 15 minutes, as per the Archers, or the length of time it takes you to read a book. We all need to switch off and be drawn into another world, somebody else's problems, somebody else's excitement, drama, whatever. And then I went and worked in television after that as a script editor. And then when I had my first child, I jumped over the fence and became a script writer. So I wrote scripts for about 10 years for lots of different shows like Heartbeat, Doctors, Holby City. But I'd always wanted to write a book. That was my first love. I really wanted to television's about leaving things out and providing a template for other people to fill in the gaps, the costume designers, the location people, the actors. It's just a sort of, you're providing something for other people to bring to life. Whereas with a book, you have complete control and you're just sort of controlling the reader's imagination. So it is much more about words, which is my primary love.
So did you used to read the boys lots of books when they were children as well?
Oh, yeah.
It used to be a ritual, didn't it, reading a book before bedtime? I think now you give the kids an iPad, don't you, and tell them to listen to it themselves, which is not really the way I would like things to do. And you mentioned about having the book writing. Do you think a lot of people say that we all have a book inside of us? Do you think that's true?
I think everybody's life story is probably unique and interesting. Whether they can, it's funny, isn't it? I know a lot of people who are very verbally great, fantastic storytellers, but when they sort of get very inhibited when they come to write anything down, they just say, I can't write, I don't know how. And I sort of think, well, you can talk. So, try just dictating it and see what happens. And then, you can work on finessing it then. So I think everybody's got a story inside them, whether it's a book, whether they've got the sort of... See, writing books, it's not just about having a good idea or being good at writing. It's about stamina. It's about being able to write all of those words and get them done and get them into shape. Anybody can start a book, but not so many people can finish it. So it is quite arduous.
When you're writing a book, and obviously you've got to get up, and are you thinking, well, I've got to write 90,000 words, I think you said, for your books. do you plan that in advance by saying 90,000 words divided by X number of months, X number of weeks, or do you just go with the flow? Is it that disciplined, or is it a bit of a free for yourself?
It's a bit of a combination. Every time I write a book, I do it slightly differently. I'm not at the same pace at all. I'm quite sort of semi-chaotic, but because I worked in telly, I think my brain works in a certain way that is quite disciplined. So although it looks as if I haven't planned it, it's all there in the back of my mind. And I do have a sort of route map of where I want the story to go and where I want it to finish. But then I do just start writing and see what happens, because very often while you're exploring the idea that you come up with, other ideas start flooding in as you start introducing the characters. And you can get little twists and turns along the way. So I usually end up where I intended to end up. But sometimes I take a sort of scenic route, if you like.
And why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you?
Or a character becomes much more interesting than you thought. You think, oh, I didn't realise that about them. And I have no idea how that works. It just is your sort of subconscious. I do a lot of writing in my sleep. It's really weird. If I've sort of hit a brick wall, quite often it will unravel during the night, or I'll wake up and go, oh, of course, that's what's got to happen. And then,
so do you need to have a notepad next to your bed and sort of wake up and go scribble, scribble, just to remind you?
I quite often will just write it into my phone, on the notes section of the phone, and just go, oh, Andrea decides to, just so I don't forget, because, one does forget as one gets older.
Well, I was down in Cornwall a few weeks ago, and I actually picked up a day at the beach hut.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember writing that one?
Yes, I wrote that during lockdown.
During lockdown,
yeah.
I love this one because you've interspersed it with things like recipes. Now, you were talking about the egg sandwiches and the tomato soup, and I love this bit here where you say potato salad. Like hummus, potato salad is another of those seemingly dull dishes that has a fanatical following. But it's true, isn't it?
I've seen entire magazine articles devoted to the potato salad. And the big question is, do you go mayo or do you go like
salad cream?
No, like a French dressing.
Right.
Yeah, that's the big divide.
Yes. And of course that's the problem really with the beach huts in Hove, that really they don't have enough room inside to prepare them. So everything has to really be pre-prepared, and you carry them down to the seafront in those big cool boxes, etc. There's no washing facilities really, although some beach hut owners have very cleverly put like a little cutout for a stainless steel bowl in a corner so they can wash up and put the cups and saucers away till the next time. Also, there are quite a few cafes and restaurants along the seafront where you can just leave your beach hut for a little while and wander along. And, I just think it's a great way of spending the day in slightly different ways so it doesn't become too regimented. You can pick and choose, and members of the family can pick and choose what they want to do.
Yeah, and that was the idea behind the book really, was to give people inspiration for picnics, and that is very much what I associate with beach huts. So it's not a traditional novel. It's a sort of combination of short stories, dramatic stories, set over one day in a row of beach huts, and then each section has the recipes for that time of day. So there's breakfast,
but it all comes together in the end.
Lunch recipes, and then a romantic dinner.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it all comes together. So there's various, everything ranging from. I don't think I've actually put a recipe for cold sausages, but that is a staple of my picnic. You have to have cold sausages, I think.
Oh, I rather like the vodka prawn penne. I thought that sounded wonderful.
That is really good, that vodka prawn pasta penne. Yeah, and then there's a sort of seafood banquet in the birthday section, because that's what I like to do every year. Is I have go down to our fishmongers and have a big, lobster and crab, and because it's actually cheaper than taking everybody out for dinner. You just go and get a big, and have potato salad with that, and that's it. Job done.
Job done. Well, of course, in the olden days, we used to have the old Tupperwares to put all our salads in, but I don't think I recall seeing any mention of Tupperware in your book so far.
Yes, or an empty ice cream carton. They're always good.
Yeah.
Full of Marmite sandwiches.
That's right. What is amazing is how many types of beach huts there are. Are you surprised at the different types of design, price and availability?
Yeah, I think every region, every place, sort of seaside town that's lucky enough to have beach huts has their own distinctive style. Again, as we've mentioned, some of them are really simple and just like cupboards almost. And then you get then there's the ones that are on stilts to take advantage of the view. And I guess geography often dictates how they look. And then, I imagine it's become quite competitive actually now. That's quite interesting, isn't it? It's like, how have you done your beach hut out? Like keeping up with the Joneses as to what colour you've got and what facilities you've got. And whereas I just love the old, weather-beaten, ramshackle, felt falling off the roof. That's my kind of beach hut, real.
Well, I think a whole industry's been spawned, hasn't it? You go on some of the online retailers and you can find cushions with beach huts on. You can find little hanging decorative fishes or little sort of posters and all the cups and everything like that. The towels, the cushions that go on the benches, key rings, for example. There is just so much now. It's just wonderful. It really is. In fact, I was up in Norfolk a few weeks ago as well with my mum, and we went into this sort of farm together with a shop, and it had the cutest little armchair with beach hut material over it. So, even the materials with beach huts and little seagulls, etc. on it. And of course, all the creative designs that you can see on Pinterest are just amazing. The canvases, the pastels, the collages, etc. There are so many people doing that sort of craft work. It's just amazing. And of course you can individualize your beach hut, so when the doors are all shut they all look identical. And when I go for the very first time with a key and an owner says, can you go and look at my beach hut, and I go down there with the key in the lock, open it up, and I never quite know what I'm going to see. And it's a bit like Christmas every time actually, because you think, wow, why haven't I seen this before? And one of the biggest things I think a couple of years ago was just a drop-down table, a table that had been made so that it flapped up against the back wall. It was out of the way, but if you wanted to put a cup of coffee on it or a book, or you wanted your children to sit and do their homework maybe, there was the table, easy peasy, and then you put it away at the end of the day. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite old-fashioned, isn't it? Like those, do you remember those old kitchen units that had a drop-down melamine? No, what was it? Formica, that's it.
Formica, that's right. Yeah, generally with like a gingham material, formica on the top.
Or little flowers, little yeah.
Definitely. But some of these bigger beach huts, to actually go and be able to rent a beach hut for a day or a week, I think that probably opens up the market to lots of other people who wouldn't necessarily have enjoyed such a stay in a beach hut.
Yeah, and especially now when, we're all stuck here, basically. So I think it's opening up to a whole new, I don't know if the audience is quite the right word, a whole new section of visitors who maybe didn't discover the British seaside beforehand, or might have done a weekend but now want to spend the whole week. So I think it's, and of course, it's all the rage, isn't it? And the prices are going through the roof and madness.
Well, I think this is it. A couple of over the last probably 6 weeks, the prices have just escalated so much. It's almost become like a feeding frenzy. But of course, as things open up and we can get on a plane again or go to, local campsites, then I think the prices will settle again. But in between times, you just want people to have had such fun and enjoyment. I mean, I don't know whether you know, but here in Brighton and Hove, you have to keep your beach hut for a minimum of 3 years. So, it's not a short-term purchase. You really have to think over the next 3 years, am I really going to want to use it year after year? Do I want to go and maintain it before the winter, after winter? What happens if, I've got my insurance bill to pay again? Or, all my annual license fees come up again. You've really got to think about it carefully. But I think, as you said earlier, the enjoyment that people get from going down with their children, those memories are just absolutely priceless. There's nothing you can do to take that away, is there?
No, I don't think that. Yeah, exactly. And I think more people are getting into the idea of having a weekend away as well, or getting a weekend escape,
short break,
whatever. And of course, I wonder if people are buying them to work in, maybe. I mean, that's what I'd love. That would be my dream, is to have a little beach hut to just sit and
with the solar panels or electricity. And
yeah, exactly. I'd have to have everything. I'd need a nice goose down duvet, and as long as I had a little gas stove, and I don't need too many luxuries, but just a bit of comfort, and a loo would be good. But I am dreaming at this point.
Oh, goodness me. Well, of course, the other issue with the Brighton and Hove ones, you're not supposed to have gas in your beach huts either.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that makes it
sense.
quite difficult. They're all wood, aren't they? If you've just joined me, you're listening to Let's Talk Property with Heather Hilda Darling and my guest today, Veronica Henry. We're talking beach huts, one of my favourite topics, particularly now the sun's out. So come and join us in our virtual beach hut, Radio Reverb 97.2 FM and DAB. Do you think beach hutting is in the blood? Like some people love camping, some people like doing 3 peak challenges or caravanning, or do you think it's something that grows on you, perhaps?
I certainly think if people have done it as have been in one as a child, then that's probably something that they want to recapture, a bit like caravanning. And they are fun. They're a bit like caravans or tents because they're very compact, aren't they? There is something about that sort of restrictive space and economy that's quite kind of adventurous, isn't it? I don't know. So yeah, maybe it is something that's in our DNA, that kind of being in something that's a bit more, that's very practical and small, and you have to live quite ergonomically and be very close to each other. Yeah, in that whole sort of caravan camping, yeah, I think that's quite peculiarly British, perhaps.
Yes. Now, you spoke about sort of the emotions of the beach hut. What is it that you think really makes it quite distressful when you have to sell? Is it because you're having to move on facing another part of your life stage, or is it just because memories very often are more precious to us than what's to come? Because obviously we don't know what's to come, do we?
Yeah, I mean, quite often, as with homes, what do they say? Death, divorce and debt usually sort of predicate a house sale, and it probably is that nobody would sort of voluntarily wake up and think, I'm a bit bored with this beach hut, I think I'll get rid of it. There's usually going to be an inciting incident that forces you into it. So it's quite loaded, isn't it, the sale? And also I think they probably are like characters in a way. It becomes sort of so like an extension of yourself, and your own personality is imprinted on it. So I think it's really personal. I think that's what it is.
Yes, I think I'd agree with you. I mean, quite a few people down here just leave the numbers on the front, but some more inventive people have given them names like, La Plage or The Hut, which I'm not sure that's hugely inventive. But you're right, they do take on a personality of their own. But unlike selling a house or a flat, for example, you can sell them a lot more quickly. So in Hove, for example, they can be done and dusted within a couple of weeks generally.
Oh, really?
Yes, you sell a property and that can go on for months and months. You've got your conveyancer. Sometimes if you're living in a flat, you've got the managing agents who've got to send in answers to certain queries. Whereas with the Hove beach huts, it's literally, you don't need a solicitor. Apart from the estate agency side of ID and proof of address and making sure that you've paid your annual licence and any council tax bills.
Laundering money.
Exactly, laundering. Well, you can imagine with the price they are now. It's
Yeah,
not like they used to.
Way of getting rid of a few quid that you've got under the bed.
Radio Reverb. Radio Reverb.
In days gone by, a lot of Londoners used to buy the beach huts, but now that's not allowed. So it's only the Brighton and Hove residents who are allowed to buy Brighton and Hove. Yes, and it's funny because I still get a lot of inquiries from London buyers. I want to buy a beach hut. My first question is, what's your postcode? Because if you're not local, you cannot buy.
Do they not get furious?
Well, there's not a lot they can do about it. You know, I think, unfortunately, the more they're bought and sold speculatively, the higher the price goes, and the local people are crowded out, which isn't really fair, is it? So
no.
I think it's a very good thing of doing that, to make sure that local people do get them. But there's no, after 3 years, if you want to keep it on at the moment, you can keep it on. And, as I say, some people have had theirs 20, 30, 40 years. And very often people will say to, well, my mum had it before me. And you think, my goodness me. And very often the way you can tell is most of the beach hut doors now open inwardly. Those that open outwardly are generally the older beach huts.
Oh,
I know, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. But
I don't know how you're imagining the Hove beach huts, but there's no windows in them either, so you literally do need the doors open if you want some fresh air.
Boiled on like today.
But the benefits of owning a beach hut, you've already alluded to it, the mental well-being, the escapism, the memory making. Do you think at our different life stages we attach more to one than another? Our mental well-being, if we're an adult,
yes,
do we attach that more to being out in the fresh air and maybe walking along the prom or doing a little jog or talking to the neighbours if they're there, or the memory making maybe with the children if we're younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have different phases in our, sort of the teenagers and upwards, probably, between 18 and 30 probably wouldn't be that interested because they want adventure and excitement and...
I'm going to stop you there. I'm so sorry because it's funny. I'm getting a lot of that age group.
Oh!
And do you know why? Because they want to socialise with their friends. They've got younger children, but also paddleboarding and canoeing and cold water swimming is really quite in vogue at the moment. So, of course, they want to store their paddleboards. They want to use the beach huts as a changing hut, which incredibly is what they used to be used for, wasn't it? For changing.
Yes, that's how they were.
So it's done full circle.
Modesty. Oh, that's interesting. So, so they're not all whizzing off to Ibiza. They're all hanging out in Hove. And well, that's great. That's lovely.
Yeah, I think it's great as well. And obviously the social gathering, I think we've all, during lockdown in particular, we've underestimated how much our family and friends mean to us. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. I mean, everybody's desperate. And I think when you're conglomerating by the beach, there's so many, there's something for everybody, isn't there? So if you've got a bunch of friends, then you've got your paddleboarders, you might have your surfers, you've got the one that just wants to nip off and get the Barbie stuff and get all that organised, and then you've got somebody who just wants to sit in a deck chair and read. So there's so much potential for all personalities and all activities to be catered for.
That's right.
It's just the weather. It's the weather. That's the thing,
weather. Yes, that's the big cloud that hangs over us all the time, isn't it? So imagine we've now come to Freedom Day yesterday. But imagine we can go abroad again. There's no green, amber, red that we've got to consider. What would tempt you to swap an overseas holiday with a beach hut staycation in the UK?
Well, I always long for a reading week when I can just pack up all the books that I've been meaning to read for ages and go off pack up a big cool box with all the things I want to eat and literally just sit there and read. And you know, if you go abroad, you can't take books with you because they're too heavy. And I like a real book myself. So that is perfect. I can have a little shelf put up in the beach hut with all the things I want to read on it, and just not have to do anything else. I think that's, you know, I don't know. I've found a lot of people I know have really struggled to read during lockdown because their brains are fried. And there's just nothing left. There's no database left in our brains to process fiction. So I think actually just being able to get away from it all, not having anything else to worry about, and literally just have that wonderful pleasure and let those books take you somewhere else. Let them do the hard work. While you just
and of course in your book A Day at the Beach Hut, you've given us 10 classic beach reads, which
yes.
When I read it I thought, no, which ones of these have I read before? And there's quite a few of them actually, which, because I love reading as well. Are there any of those that you've read and reread? Do you tend to reread books?
Oh, or? I do. I think my favourite summer read is Jaws. Luckily we don't have too many sharks here. It's so much more than just about a shark, that book. It's amazing. It's a real hotbed of all sorts of things going on under the surface. Obviously the whole, you know, shark thing is the drama behind it, but all the personalities, you know, there's all sorts of naughtiness going on underneath. And I think I read it when I was about 12 and I was like, oh my God, this is what a book can be. It's a real page turner.
Well, I have to admit that I love Cashel Mara by Susan Howard, and I also love a lot of the Shirley Conran books I've read because they are typical beach reading, aren't they? So you're absolutely right. You've got to choose a book that sort of takes you out of where you are. You don't realise the noise that's going on around you, and you can just literally dive in and enjoy, can't you?
Yeah, you don't want anything too complicated or demanding or kind of thought-provoking. Just want the writer to do the work for you, really.
That's the lazy option, isn't it? Let the writer do it.
But I mean, you have to engage your imagination, and that's great. But just to have that sort of what's going to happen next.
Yes. Yeah. Do you like turning the pages, or are you a Kindle person?
Oh, I do. I much prefer a real book, although my eyesight's not what it was. So depending on how big the letters are in a book, it depends. And of course, that is the great thing about the Kindle, is you can make, you know, you just get long-sighted, isn't it, when you can't read so well. So Kindles are much better from that point of view, and you can get the light on them as well. But I do love a book. You know, I think books make a home as well. You know, if you walked into a home and it just had a Kindle on the kitchen worktop, you wouldn't have a clue about that person. If you go into somebody's house and you see a bookshelf, you kind of get the measure of them pretty quickly, I think. It's interesting, isn't it?
No, you said that, you know, a lot of your characters, they're based on people that you've overheard, heard, maybe seen going about their daily business. Do you think a lot of people would recognise themselves in your books or think, oh, that sounds a bit like me, or is it just so far from...
I never take anybody from real life and put them straight into my books. They might inspire me, or I'll just remember somebody's incredibly intense gaze or habits, so that each character is usually a kind of patchwork of various different creations, and then put through the filter of my imagination, and then the writing takes over, so they develop more characteristics. So yeah, they're not carbon copies of anybody in real life, because that's unkind and unfair, really. But people do sometimes think, oh, is that so and so? Quite often that happens. So it's just, there's a sort of process that each character goes through. And actually, people from real life don't always work in fiction. It's very peculiar. You put them in and they just don't feel right. They don't settle in. So you have to change them. Yeah.
So all your books are fiction, are they? Have you written any non-fiction?
Well, the Day at the Beach Hut is a mixture, the one that's out at the moment. So it's a mixture of short fiction stories and recipes and kind of, as you say,
book recommendations,
playlist recommendations.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a sort of hybrid, if you like. Have I written any? I'm just trying to think. Have I written any? I've written a quick read as well, which is a novella. So it's a short novel. And Quick Reads, it's part of the Reading Agency, which is a reading charity. And they are designed for less confident readers or people, maybe adults who are learning to read for the first time, or people who've never really engaged with reading. They're used a lot in education and workplaces and, for example, prisons. So yeah, my quick read was set in a beach hut too. So that was a wonderful and I was very honoured and privileged to be able to write that. And it was just great talking to people. I did quite a few library visits and talks to people who. I spoke to a girl once who said, I've literally never read, that's the first book I've ever read in my life. And that to me is just, and she was enchanted. She just wanted to read more. And, if that's the only thing I've achieved in my life, that'll do. That's a brilliant, brilliant thing.
That's a lovely gift, isn't it, to give to somebody?
Amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing.
So the two other titles in this quadrant, Christmas at the Beach Hut. We did try to do something last year in Hove at Christmas time, but of course that came to naught. Yeah. And a wedding at the Beach Hut. Now, we've got a gorgeous place just along in Brighton with it's a sort of a little shelter. And you often see weddings taking place there, particularly the photographs. You've got the beach in the background and it almost looks Caribbean. But I've never seen a wedding at a beach hut. Perhaps any listeners who've had a wedding at the beach who could get in touch and let us know how it went and how you managed to cram your 30 guests into a beach hut. That would be fantastic. Yeah. But just imagine, Veronica, that you own a beach hut, but you want to raise about 25,000 by selling your beach hut or a new kitchen. Now, would you hold on to your beach hut?
Oh, well, as somebody who's quite obsessed with kitchens as well, that would be really difficult. I do have my dream kitchen. I don't have it. I don't own it, but I have a dream kitchen in my head, if you like. And
right.
I don't know, because the thing about a kitchen is I would use it every day. Let's hope I never get thrown into that situation.
Okie dokie. And obviously all the costs of owning a beach hut every year, as I said earlier, the insurance, the license fees, etc. Do you think it's worth laying out for that all the time? If you were a beach hut owner, would you be happy to pay that?
Oh, well, I think with any kind of investment, there always becomes some sort of financial responsibility. So it's just part of the course, isn't it? If you buy a caravan, for example, then you have to keep it roadworthy, you have to keep it maintained, there's licenses, etc. So yeah, I think anything that involves spending money will then need spending more money. That's just how it
absolutely
rolls.
right.
Especially nowadays, you have to have insurance for things, unfortunately. Whereas back in the day, I'm sure they wouldn't have thought twice about it.
No, I don't think they did. Right, well, we're about to wrap up. I can't believe nearly an hour has gone, Veronica. So I'm going to ask you a question. Now, imagine that tomorrow you wake up to find you've been appointed the UK's first ever beach hut minister.
Oh, dream job.
What would be your top 3 considerations to make properties on the prom available to more people?
Gosh. Well, I mean, it's kind of almost a metaphor for what's going on at the moment by the seaside, isn't it? The fact that all coastal properties are being bought as second homes and ousting the locals who can't afford the property. So I'd try and find a way of making it more democratic and perhaps have a beach hut lottery.
A beach hut lottery. That's a good idea.
So that it was fair and that everybody got a chance to spend some time in it. So if you want to spend some time in the beach hut, then you buy your beach hut lottery ticket. And I think if once you've won it once, you can't win it again. So yeah, I think that's quite a good idea.
And that's a great idea. Or actually, even just allowing people to rent their beach huts out would open it up to more people, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
exactly.
What else would you do? So that's sort of 1 and 2 there, isn't it? Would you build them in more places, or what would you do?
I think it would be, where they do exist, I think it would be great to encourage kind of artistic, food, cultural things around that. So to sort of encourage a sort of very creative community almost around it, so that they become more than just a row of beach huts. There's, lovely pop-up food, perhaps, to encourage people to come to that area, and art. I think so many people are inspired by the seaside, and maybe even writing retreats. Yeah, just to sort of make it more of a hub of something more, just that added extra that encourages another revenue stream perhaps for the area, and to make it inspiring and stimulating for people.
Yes, that sounds a great idea.
Have I got the job?
I think you've got the job, hands down, absolutely. How many billions do you want?
We'll talk about it.
It's been wonderful talking to you, Veronica. Where can we find you more details about your books? Do you have a website? Are you on social media?
I am. I'm on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. I think Veronica Henry Author is Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. I've got a website, veronicahenry.co.uk. Books, I think it's available certainly in Tesco's at the moment on at quite a good price, or good bookshops.
All good bookshops.
If it's not in there at the moment, you could certainly get it ordered in. And obviously there are online retailers available.
And are we going to see a 5th beach hut book coming soon?
Oh gosh, I'm quite beach hut out at the moment. No, I would never say never. Never say never. What have I done? I've done Christmas, I've done weddings, well, who knows? I'm sure there's all sorts I could do. I'm sure it could go on forever.
Oh,
as long as
wonderful.
beach huts exist, I will continue to.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Veronica. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been lovely learning about your work, and obviously I feel your energy for beach huts as well. So all the best. And
thank you.
yeah, thank you. This is Heather Hilda Darling on Let's Talk Property, Beach Huts, on Radio Reverb 97.2 FM and DAB.
It's a house thing. It's a house thing.